Hey everyone, Rio Daniel here. In this video, what I really want to do is just give a personal opinion about the Dominican Republic, more specifically Punta Cana area. I was in the, I believe, Los Corrales or the Bavaro Beach area in that little area, and I'm going to show you where this is on a map in just a minute, but just kind of give you a breakdown of my opinions and my thoughts regarding staying in the Dominican Republic as a digital nomad or even just as an expat or something like that, because right now, I honestly did not enjoy myself with this. It was rather a disappointment. I thought the Dominican Republic would be all about just having great beaches and things like that. And I just want to come here and share my experiences and what happened to me. Well, I was there throughout the month of April 2025. So I did spend a full month there. And honestly, that was way too long for me, but that's what I had committed to. So that's what I'd done and stayed. So one of the things about the Dominican Republic that at least the area that was with me or that I stayed in that I didn't like is I was in a condo resort, which the condo itself was fine. It had its own pool. Unfortunately, the pool had problems about half the time I was there. It had a leak, so I really couldn't enjoy it. But there was at least a pool there that I can enjoy. But for right now, there wasn't much to do locally around where I was at. Now, of course, I know Dominican Republic is a big town. You've got Santo Domingo, you've got some of the other bigger places, but it wasn't just necessarily about the location where I was at, but it was just about the environment and just the feeling I got with the people that were around there. Now, just to let you know, when I was there in the Dominican Republic, there was a lot of construction going on. There was a ton of real estate signs where people can buy condos, and there were constantly buildings being built. There were only a couple of roads coming in and out of where I was, and that's pretty much where all the resorts are, by the way. So all the resort area, of course, looked great, but any place you walked or went on the roads outside of the resort area really looked pretty trashy and pretty just, it didn't necessarily look safe. It just looked dirty, almost like you're in a third world country, which again, I know it would be the Dominican Republic. But one of the things I had a problem with was just as I began to learn and want to speak more Spanish, the people that I experienced in the Dominican Republic were not very forgiving of trying to help people understand Spanish. Now, first of all, I'd spent a couple of months at Cancun before this, just starting my sort of world journey, and I started just learning a little bit of Spanish, and I was hoping to continue to practice that throughout the Dominican Republic, even though I do know that the Spanish there was different, and it is different. But the thing I've noticed, at least the difference between Mexico and from my experience in the Dominican Republic, people in Mexico, if you tried to speak Spanish with them, they were at least fun, cooperative. They tried to help you with it as long as you tried to speak Spanish and didn't force them to speak English. But it wasn't the case in the Dominican Republic. People there were almost rude, that if you didn't speak Spanish, they spoke Spanish to you. They were not forgiving. They did not try to correct you. They did not try to understand you. Either you speak the Dominican Republic Spanish or get out of my face. The thing, which was, I wouldn't say hurtful, but just, it was abrupt and just, wow, okay, so it's going to have a hard time communicating unless I know exactly what to say. And again, the Spanish between Latin American Spanish and Dominican Republic Spanish is slightly different in their tone and how they speak and their structure and things like that. The Dominican Republic seemed to be honestly a little bit more slangy, slang type Spanish. The one thing I did notice about the people, besides just that they were, most of them were friendly. If you said hello to them, they would say hello back, even just buenos dias or hola or something like that. But most of them just left you alone. But there are a lot of hardworking people in the Dominican Republic. Everybody there was on the hustle. Everybody there was working, was doing something and so forth. So that's one good thing about it. But again, one of the things I thought was pretty bad here was I was hoping to get close to some beaches. Now, the Airbnb that I booked for this was, and I'll show you where this is in a minute. It was within about 15-minute walk to the public beach. But again, getting to the public beach was rather disappointing, to be upfront and honest, because the public beaches there at the Dominican Republic were not very well maintained. Now, keep in mind, if you go to the Dominican Republic, here's what, just a brief synopsis. If you're in an Airbnb or outside of an all-inclusive resort, I could pretty much say I didn't like it, but I did have the ability to go on a couple of all-inclusive resorts. That is the place to be. If you go to the Dominican Republic and you go to an all-inclusive resort, absolutely beautiful, brilliant. The beaches there, they've got everything set up for you. They've almost got built-in communities. Some of them almost have like casinos and shopping and everything else. And there's really nothing that you need to even do outside of the all-inclusive resort other than get bussed in from the airport to the all-inclusive resort and then get bussed back. So there's really no reason to leave and go outside in the other areas that I was speaking about earlier that I had experienced inside the Dominican Republic, because I do like to walk as an exercise. So I walk about five or 6 miles at least once or twice a day. And there's only a couple of roads going in. So I had to go up and down these roads every day. So I experienced them quite often throughout the entire month. So again, an all-inclusive resort is the best place to go. I did actually purchase a day pass and go to one of the all-inclusive resorts, and it was just exactly what you would think paradise is. The beaches were nice and clean inside there. They were very well maintained. You had your own like little covered cabana that you could sit back. People come and brought you drinks. You went to the pool, which they probably had 4 or 5 different pools. You can hop in the ocean, which again, they monitor the beaches. And they had like tractors cleaning up all the stuff on the beach, dragging it, cleaning it, making sure that the beaches were well maintained. So kudos to the all-inclusive resorts for those. But the public beach, no. I'm going to show you a picture of what the public beach looks like. And that is not something that you probably even want to go on just to even feel safe. But I'll show it to you. But again, the all-inclusive resort was great food. But right now, obviously, if I stay there, I would probably end up leaving weighing 100 pounds more at the end of the month because of just all the eating and drinking. Because again, it's all inclusive. You just go to the bar, order whatever you want, any order of drinks, as many as you want, all day, every day, eat and just sleep, go to the pool, and that's pretty much about it. But so it is a great vacation spot if you go to all-inclusive resorts and those places that really cater to people. But again, outside of those resorts, just staying in the Airbnbs, the general public, not that it's awful, but it takes so much time to get to places. I did go to a couple of excursions and resorts, but literally I had to Uber 30 minutes to get even to the closest store that even had just anything, clothes or just, I wouldn't say food. There was a grocery store that was locally, but just anything that you want. If you wanted a fan, if you wanted just anything that required like a department store, it was a 30-minute ride from where I'm at. And being there were no, I think in the entire Punta Cana, there were no Walmarts, Home Depots, Lowe's. There was nothing that you can go to that was a national brand. Everything was local. And again, it was just harder to get to places and come back unless you had your own car to rent and things like that, or you Ubered a long distance. Now, there were some other excursions that we went to, but unfortunately, the one excursion I did end up going to was, again, probably about 70 minutes away, one way. So you're going an hour. Just think about that, an hour drive to get there. And it wasn't like a huge amount of distance, but because the roads were so bad, they had speed bumps, and the roads are not very well maintained from the infrastructure perspective, unless you're on like the main highways. The side roads, the ones that go up into the mountain and things like that, were not very well maintained. So people had to go slow to not to mess up the suspension in their vehicles and things like that. But that just makes for a long day when you have an hour plus ride to get there and then an hour plus ride to get back. And that's pretty much standard on any of the excursions. Now, the cool thing is that if you do go on these excursions, there are vehicles that will pick you up from the resorts and things like that. Again, from the resorts, they will not pick you up from an Airbnb. You have to be at one of the major resorts that they can come into and things like that. So that's another downside, is you have to get there or get to a place where you can catch one of their buses or vans to take you there. So anyway, it was just challenging to get around. Now, there were buses that took you there. I didn't have an opportunity to catch that because, again, the Spanish difference at that particular time, I wasn't enough to sit back and ask, where does the bus take you? Typically, I just hop on the bus and give them so much money, but I didn't really want to keep Dominican Republic pesos. Now, keep in mind, Mexican pesos, they have their own currency, but in the Dominican Republic, they have DOP, DOP, whatever you want to call it, but they do have their own peso system there. That's different from everything else, and it is a much higher amount than even the Mexican pesos to the US dollar. At the time, I think it was about 62 to 63 pesos, like Dominican Republic pesos per US dollar, and at Mexico was more like 19 to 20 pesos per US dollar, just to kind of give you an idea. So everything that you bought in the store was priced in Dominican Republic pesos, so you just had to divide everything in a sense by 62, 63 in order to get what the price is. That wasn't too bad at all, but again, getting around, there were taxis. Taxis do take you a short distance, and I've got a few of the cool looking taxis, some pictures of them that I saw that were unique. I've never seen them anywhere else. And it looks like there is a company inside of the Dominican Republic that actually runs all of these, but people drive up and down. As a matter of fact, here's a first for me, by the way. Uber is available in the Dominican Republic, but this was the first time I've actually seen Uber with a motorcycle. And again, that's just my first. I've never seen you be able to book a motorcycle through Uber to take you places. Now, of course, booking it through a motorcycle is much less expensive, probably around the experience of about half of what it takes for a vehicle. But again, I was not impressed very much with the Uber cars there because a lot of them were very rough, damaged. They were comfortable to ride in for the most part. The AC worked, but they really looked like they were broken, a lot of them, and they were just put together with a shoestring and bubble gum kind of thing, if that makes sense. But anyway, let me hop over to give you a brief idea of where I was staying at here. This is a map of the Dominican Republic and Punta Cana. So right now I pinned the area that I was in real quick here. Let me see if I can come in here and zoom in a little bit here. This little pin right here is where I was at roughly. So if we come in here, this is the area. Now keep in mind, this right here, this street is one of the main streets that comes in. This is what connects all of the resorts. For the most part, all the resorts, if you take a look at, flow off of this main road right here. And this is the main road that they take all the way in to get to this area. And then it cuts over here for the most part. And then this is the road that leads back out. So there are like 2 main roads that lead in, and there are some other infrastructure roads, but keep in mind, these roads are for all-inclusive resorts. A lot of these are not available to the public when you get on this side over here of it. But Right now, there is public beach access somewhere right around this area right here. So as you can tell, if I were to sit back and walk, I can come here and just walk down the street. Come over here. Again, there are several beach access points, but only available through all-inclusive resorts. So you have to have a little wristband in order to use those entrances, which of course were much nicer than the public entrance. But then one of these roads, you have to come down here and walk along this road right here. But it's almost like an alleyway. And I didn't get a good video of walking down the alleyway because honestly, it was a bit scary. The only reason I knew it was a walkway is because they had several shops there where they were selling souvenirs, suntan lotion, and things like that. But walking from the main road here to the public beach access point that was available was, again, pretty disappointing because you walk in, they had nothing but a bunch of boats broken down, almost like a boat graveyard there that you have to walk through to get over to the main beach area that's here. Now, when you did get to the main beach, you are allowed to walk up and down the beach. There are public access points, so you can walk up and down the beach, but it isn't very wide. The all-inclusive resorts try to take up as much of that space, and there is private fenced-off area where the all-inclusive resort people have their like little chairs and things like that they can lay out in, and there is security there, so you're not allowed to go over there. And there's several piers and things like that you can go out on around here. Just trying to see if I can find one real quick along the beach. I don't really see any, but there are like little piers that go out and allow you to go out into the ocean a little bit more. Those are exclusive to the resort, so you're not allowed to walk across those unless you have a wristband and you're part of that particular resort. But let me quickly just show you a picture of, here's just a quick picture of some of these taxis I told you about. These are pretty cool. They are covered, but the driver sits up here and it's almost like a motorcycle engine that's almost been converted and has like 2 wheels in the back here. Here's another picture of one that was coming down, and this Poppy Express seems to be a big company there because you see these driving all over the place, and I don't know what the prices are for them. I never really took them, but I don't think they're very expensive because sometimes you might have people hanging out. I've seen, believe it or not, about 6 people, 2 people, 1 person here, 1 person on the other side of the driver, and then 4 people, 2 people sitting down and 2 people almost hanging out the sides, riding in these things. And I'm not even sure how much horsepower these things have to get going, but they were able to pull all of them. But I'm sure at some point here they were charging for it. But these are just the cute little taxis that run up and down that'll take you to different places as long as you have the money. Now, this right here is a video that I took of the public beach access. And this is what I was talking about with the boats. These boats right here are actually like permanently there on the docks because it's a public access beach. This is not very well clean. You probably won't be able to hear the sound, but right now this is the beach. And then here's how much seaweed. Notice right here, let me pause real quick and just go back a little bit. Notice right about here, how this right here is an all-inclusive resort. And if we go back a little bit more, notice how this beach is all cleared off back here. That's because the all-inclusive resorts I told you they do clear the seaweed off. But this is the public access part. This is the part that you can lay out a towel or beach and enjoy the beach. But notice that there's stuff all over the place, trash, seaweed, things like that. And again, this is the beach for the most part. You could walk up and down here, but you see that there were boats docked out here. All of these different boats, one out here, one here. These were not allowed to be docked out of the all-inclusive resorts because this is a swimming area. Apparently this right here is the public swimming area, but this is also an area where people can dock boats and not have to pay permits or something like that. There's something special about it because literally there were boats all over the place, and I didn't really feel comfortable trying to get out there and swim and get potentially hit and get knocked into one of these boats. But here, just the kind of beach itself, which again, here's, if we take a look here at the very end, this right here is just a bunch of the other boats that were over here that were already docked. And again, all the way the walkway here, which is not filled with nothing but boats, there's only like a really small, maybe a 5 or 6 foot path to get over there. So that's what kind of made it a little bit more disappointing for me, was to sit back and, that right there being the aspect that I got of the beach. Now, apparently there is a much nicer free beach there, but again, you have to taxi about 40 minutes away to get over there to it. And this beach is a little bit better, more maintained. But again, I just tried to stay within the small, little area without having to go 30, 40 minutes or an hour away to sit back and go visit and do things. But there wasn't a lot to do in the area that I was in. It was pretty much eating and drinking, smoking cigars, things like that people would normally do on vacation. And then, of course, everybody wanting to sell you trinkets. There were a bunch of those street vendors, people trying to build rapport with you, asking you for money and things like that, specifically outside the grocery stores, because they know that's where a lot of people went to go get supplies. They also sold alcohol and things like that there. So they went there a lot, pick up maybe some drinks, and then go back to the all-inclusive resort. Maybe that was just a cheaper way of doing it. But anyway, that's my opinion and experience that I had of being in Punta Cana. I probably wouldn't go back to the Dominican Republic in an Airbnb fashion unless it was within a community or I went into an all-inclusive resort. That's definitely the better way to go there because there are buses that take you right to the resort, get you in there, you stay on the resort. If you do want to do an excursion, they come to the resort, pick you up, and there's really no need for you to walk or go or do anything outside of the resort other than do your excursions, and then they drop you off at the front. When they drop you off at the front, there's other little golf carts that will then take you back into the main building which again, you can go back in and enjoy all of the food and drink there. So anyway, that's my experience, what I had there. I just want to share that with you. Thanks so much for visiting my channel and have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.